my friends, and welcome back not only to the Brightworks, but to a brand new season of Beyond All Reason. As many of you, I'm sure, are well aware, Season 2, quote unquote, Season 2 of Beyond All Reason, as it's officially been titled, has officially been released. And with it comes a whole bunch of changes that I'm eager to take a look at, and I covered the extensive list over on the live stream, Saturdays, 12 to 4 PDT. If there's not an event, if there's an event, usually we go all day. Feel free to go tune in over there and join the Discord as well, always linked down below to get the announcement for when we go live. That's usually where I announce it, there or in the official Beyond No Reason Discord channel. But anyways, excited to see how this new round of patches is going to affect the gameplay as we dive into a match here today on Bismuth Valley. Now, I chose this map not only because it was, well, recent, and I know it has the newest the newest update on it, but also because, well, I figure Bismuth Valley is a pretty good place to take a look around at some of the different changes, because, of course, Bismuth Valley is a lanes map, so it's not necessarily an air, sea, tech, land. It's more of a 1v1 sort of a situation, and then commanders can go about their business after they've either won or lost their lane. So it should be a good, for all those that are out there playing on Glitters or out there playing on Isthmus, it should be a good opportunity to figure out what the basis of the game looks like before you mix things up all too often. And basically the entire change, most of the changes revolve around the T1 early game. So I feel like it's a really good opportunity to take a look at that T1 early game as best we can. Today, spawning as the blue team leader, it's going to be Frotodor, the blue commander clocking in at 28 open skill and silver chevrons to boot. Going to be showing us a good old-fashioned quad mex, double solar, double con opener here. Okay. It's a very greedy opener, but one that's being matched, it looks like, by his lane opponent, Feeds, who is going for a vehicle, essentially the vehicle equivalent of that. We got 2 mechs, 2 solar, and then into vehicles. Obviously going to be slightly less economy in the early game because we're spawning forward, but not the wrong move, I do believe, as this forward base is going to get those units to the front line, those slower on the hills vehicle units to the front line a little bit sooner. A little air scout coming across already as well here. The pink commander, Mr. Pickles, going into air here on what is arguably the air lane. This is one of those things that's always been up for debate on this map particularly. And I guess we have our opportunity to take a look at one of the first changes that has been made. So the Banshee has received a little bit of a change, removing its shotgun projectiles and instead swapping for plasma standard, as is the Armada, weapons standardization. Armada fires plasma projectiles, like their little Gauss cannons attached to the pawn's arms, and now the Banshee does too. It's not a significant damage change, but it is interesting because, well, at least it looks thematically appropriate. Another important change here, ticks have been slightly nerfed. At 21 metal instead of the previous 17, they're now a little bit more expensive to put out on the field. Means Armada commanders can spam, well, not quite as many of them as before. Still at 21 metal, they're relatively easy to put out there. But another one that's received plenty of change here as well have been the pawns. So indeed, there we go. The pawns starting to roll out. Now costing 52 metal apiece, and there's been a whole range of different improvements and detriments to their modifiers here. Mostly debuffs. Mostly things have been nerfed slightly. I believe their range, their range and line of sight, I believe, are both reduced. And their speed remained the same, so they basically can't see and can't fight quite as far. Grunts received almost exactly the same change. Blitzes, however, received a slight buff. They no longer clip into each other, they clip past each other, so they can actually ball up and fire at different targets a little bit more effectively here. Should be interesting to see these blitzes going up against those pawns, of course, because, well, the blitz costing 110 metal and the pawn costing 52 means it's almost exactly a 2-to-1 ratio right there for those two units, so it is going to be interesting to see if that actually adds up in the math, or whether it's going to be a huge advantage for the pawns because of their flanking ability. To be clear, all units have the ability to flank. The pawns, however, you need more than one unit to flank, and so if you have 2-to-1 pawns, it's assumed that they're going to be the ones flanking at least most of the engagement. Anyways, blitzes across the board here. My goodness, yeah, we've got blitzes from the purple commander, blitzes from the yellow commander. We've got a whole bunch of grunts on the field as well. Grunts receiving a couple of changes as well, in tune with the reduction in sight and firing range for the grunt. For the pawn rather, the grunt has received a similar change, but also, more importantly, grunts are now 100% accurate, as well as all other laser weapons. They are now 100% accurate, which means that when they fire at a tick, they are much more likely to connect with the tick. I won't say 100% guaranteed to connect with a tick. There's always weird circumstances in simulated games like this, but they're much, much more likely to connect with those ticks. Gone are the days where a grunt can't really deal with a tick or two pushed out on the map. We've got a Wolverine crawling its way towards the front here as well. Oh, and look at that. Frotodor abandoning the backline production after the Centurion and a couple of those rocket bots have been produced in favor of going for a vehicle lab. This is stock standard. I mean, this is the bread and butter of Beyond All Reason. Basically, the bot lab into the vehicle lab is what kind of all Armada commanders tend to go for. There's a lot of good options out of the bot lab, of course, the tick being one of them and the pawns as well. Looks like we're going for a vehicle lab a little bit sooner here, though, just because, well, of course, those bots are going to be a little bit less powerful on the front than they once were. They've been nerfed ever so slightly. Now, in the last live stream we did, I got a wonderful opportunity to talk with Zephyr Skies, one of the main Legion developers, about the balance patch. And it was really enlightening. There was a lot of discussion about some of the different changes that have been made to some of the units, sort of the logic, the reasoning behind some of those changes. It was a really good opportunity to sort of dive into the details, the inner minds, and the, what is it, machinations, that's the word Patrick uses, the inner machinations of the bar dev team, and sort of see what's going on with them. And it was really interesting because there was definitely a lot of discussion about slowing down the T1 early game, which is kind of interesting here. Frotodor throwing caution to the wind here, just diving on top of the Orange Commander right now. My goodness. Yeah, okay, well, I don't know if throwing away that Janus tank was necessarily the right move. Now Frotodor is going to start taking Janus missiles to the nose. Ooh. Okay, I guess we're going for the comm trade. Boom goes the blue and orange commanders right there. Okay, Well, I guess noticing that there's only one commander on the front line right here was the right move. So yeah, there we go. Now, Cannon Rusher. Wrong game, but right idea. The green commander here are going to be moving forward to reclaim all this metal, and of course we have the Resbot out. So the blue comm throwing away the commander tactically here to remove that asset from the front line for the orange commander, and going to be reclaiming that with that bot lab start. It's the power of the bot lab start is that you get these Resbots out early, and now you can see the blue comm is getting more metal in than even they can spend. Bombers, meanwhile, in the back line here, eager to tear apart everything else. The bombers receiving a little bit of a buff, by the way. You know what? That does look a little bit better. So the change to the Stormbringer here is that they drop their bombs a little bit closer together. Their new bombing pattern is, well, there you go. Can you notice the 17% difference? It's a little bit difficult, but I will say they look like they're doing quite a bit better against these wind turbines here. Yeah, our Armada bombers... Our Armada bombers good again? Well, I don't know if they were ever good. Our Armada bombers good, period. Could well be the case. Bomber in the backline over here as well, above the Seafoam Green Commander's base, and it does look like Lavender is going up against Red, so that's a little bit spooky because Cookman at 13 open skill does represent the bottom skill for the blue team, going up against the top skill here for the red team. Always a little bit of an eyebrow raiser, a questionable moment when you see the low skill versus the highest skill, because you have to imagine, well, that side of the map is definitely going to be in a lot more trouble a lot sooner than the other side of the map here. What did the blue commander do exactly with all that metal? Whoa, well, there we go. The green commander going down now to the surge of medium tanks from the orange commander. We really went into a lot of rocket trucks, didn't we? I feel like going for just good old-fashioned medium tanks might have been the way. These blitzes firing away here, though, they can actually shoot past each other a little bit easier now. One of those little changes that can have a huge effect to just allowing units to not clip into each other as badly. Well, we've got some more units on the field here. A very mixed composition right now for the blue commander, but frankly speaking, I think a whole bundle of medium tanks might have been the way to go. Yeah, might have been the appropriate response right here. Suddenly, both these commanders are down. There's not really any way for the blue team to push forward and grab this metal here. The Resbot looks to have died. Suddenly, the situation is looking quite a bit worse here. Might have been a little bit of an overextension in that early game. Eating that metal and then backing up to the defenses, building up a sturdy force to push with, and then using the extra metal to push from that Gecko might have been the move here instead of trying to get super aggressive right out the gate. It's a nice catch, though. These tanks definitely want to try and jump on top of these rocket bots here. It's a wonderful trade, but there are so many rocket bots, and now Wigglesticks is moving northward here to try and support this composition. Centurion holding its own as well. Again, with those increased laser accuracies, that Centurion's going to be a menace out on the front lines. Excited to see how Centurions are used from Armada commanders who are looking to punish spammy commanders going for grunts or ticks or pawns. All those are going to be countered even more effectively by the Centurion, who's basically received nothing but a string of buffs over the last, month or two. Centurion's definitely falling into favor here. Big old blitz engagement, very messy. Eventually an advantage, though, for the yellow commander, who did have the numbers and now has the positional advantage as well. Cookman going for an agitator on the front line with no units. Well, okay, a single rocket bot to defend here. This should be no problem for Disology. The red commander goes in for the D-gun, shuts down the agitator, D-guns down the LLT, blasts apart the construction bot, and now Cookman is left with 800 metal. It was probably closer to 400 or 500 metal that was floated off into thin air in that agitator right there. And no extra units coming out of the laboratory. We got a metal extractor down, and it is a 2.82. That hurts quite a lot. Things looking quite rough on that southern side, and in fact, actually looking quite rough on that northern side as well. We'll zoom in to watch these beautiful Janus connections just for a second. Can't lie, I'm a sucker for those high-arc, not really high-arc, but those lock-on Janus missiles when they fire away in a big bundle. It's something to behold. Pew, pew, pew. Like a miniature banisher, they fire away those missiles and do tons and tons of damage, but of course going quite a long cooldown afterwards, so you have to be very careful about microing them back and forth. Makes them ideal, though, for going up against things like rocket bot compositions, because you can dip in, do a bunch of damage, and then dive back out, and usually you manage to get out of that with a relatively efficient trade. Things like this, though, are gigantic. If you can manage to connect with a big bundle of rocket bots like this crammed into a corner, then that's where the Janus can really shine, pulling together that AoE effect as well as distributing the massive amount of damage that they do across a wider surface area means that you're always going to have a wonderful time, well, dealing with those less efficient bot units rather than the slightly sturdier vehicle units. And this is looking great. I mean, the blue commander has finally got those medium tanks on the field. If we had this many medium tanks earlier on in the game, how much metal is this, right? This is 3,000 metal. So if we had 2/3 of this composition in the early game after reclaiming all of it from the Rex on the front line right here, this would have been an army that could have gone ahead and just gone and killed the orange commander. But now, we have to scuffle on the front line. We have to actually brawl back and forth, and it's going to become a much more risky proposition here. You can see the orange commander easily controlling 5,000 metal worth of reclaim. Closer to probably 4,000 or so on this side anyways. About half the reclaim on the orange side of the field. Most of the reclaim for the blue commander, though, based on dead units. Most of the reclaim for the red commander based on the blue team's dead units. It's one way to give back an advantage that you have in the early game, and it's easy to underestimate, too. Suddenly, you know, you feel like you've won the lane entirely, so you throw away a bunch of units trying to do damage, and then all of a sudden you've accidentally given all that metal that you won back to the enemy commander. It's a static defense war on the front lines here, though. We do have a gauntlet coming up and running here. Oh my goodness, this is something... Okay, I'm going to take a second here. I'm going to slow down the game so I can rant for a second here. The Sneaky Pete has received a change, and as soon as I saw this, my mind was blown. So, for those of you that don't know, the Sneaky Pete's cloaking has been removed. It no longer can cloak itself, but it also still costs 240 metal. 240 metal, 8,500 energy, compared to the Castro, which is the Cortex equivalent, costs 115 and 5,200 energy. It is half the price, less than half the price of the Sneaky Pete for, it's about 40% less range. So we have 360 range versus 500 range. I don't know. That rubbed me the wrong way. I was trying to make the math work in my head, but I really couldn't figure out if, like, is cloaking really that little of a deal that it's not worth reduction on the price at all? I don't know. Makes it very punishing to build those radar jammers as an Armada commander now. They serve basically, there's basically no reason to build a, when you could build two, essentially you could build two of these jammers, right, for the same cost, 230 metal versus 240, so you build two of these core jammers for a combined total of, you know, 360 plus 360 radially. The math doesn't add up. Maybe they're just, you know, trying to incentivize Armada commanders to use those radar jammers just way more tactfully or something like that. But anyways, it definitely seemed a bit odd doing the calculation there and trying to figure it out. What a messy battle on this southern side. Yellow and brown forces in tandem pushing forward here, leaving a wake of destruction as they comb through the forces here of Chiron X, the Seafoam Green commander, leaving a gigantic battlefield of scorched earth with tons and tons of plasma projectiles, missiles, and all sorts of other goodness in the dirt. Yeah, Blitz tanks trying their very best, but honestly, I mean, there's not a lot they can do. Causing more friendly fire damage than anything here from the Januses mixed into this comp. What a mess. But a mess that is now well in the hands here of the yellow commander, Kalamona, who's going to easily be able to eat up most of this wreckage here and turn it into more units, or, as I think would probably be a better idea here, going into a little bit of tech. This is where it's really handy to have one of those E-storages. It's one of those things that I've been trying to incorporate more and more. Oh, what is this? Oh, no. Beautiful connection right there from the blue commander. Manages to land one of those Janus shots. Very descriptive, I know. Ooh, ah. Sorry, as I'm enthused by the Janus tanks connecting in a gigantic way against the rocket bots here. They also connect with the commander and managed to bring it down. Those Januses do so much damage. Bringing down the commander and taking out the remainder of the forces right here. All the rocket bots go down, suddenly leaving basically just the orange army here. Now, to the tank commander's credit, though, there are 2 res bots moving in, ready to reclaim, and these should be able to eat up a gigantic portion of the metal here. Prioritizing the wrong units. Yeah, eventually they're going to figure it out here. But yeah, going after the commander, going after the medium tanks, those are the juiciest sources of metal. But it is high time that we start to upgrade our mexes. And indeed, a T2 air constructor has been handed over here. Interestingly enough, it will be the hot pink commander who goes into T2 air who starts handing out those T2 cons. We have T2 labs coming up and running all over the map here. We have a couple of labs all over, actually. It'd be better too. Wow. Nearly everybody, nearly everybody on the red team going for T2 at exactly the same time. That is a dangerous moment right there, because suddenly you've got 3, 6, 9, 12, call it 15,000 metal being put into T2 labs across the field and not being spent on the front lines. You add it all up and it can be a really, really dangerous moment for the red team in total. Case in point, the brown commander losing ground quickly here. Yellow and brown in tandem losing a little bit of the front line here. T2 mexes are already up and running for Disology, and those are going to be a little bit harder for a single medium tank to kill. Not impossible, but a little bit harder. This is the trick with these frontline porky situations, is suddenly you find yourself in a moment where you have thousands and thousands of metal. This is essentially what's supposed to pay for your T2, and you've got it put on the front line here. We have those T2 labs finally coming up and running, at least one of them here for the green commander. It's an expensive, expensive way to play here. Yeah, this front line cleaned up nicely by the tank commander. You can see thousands and thousands of metal going back to the tan economy here. And we've got those T2 mexes coming up and running. It's a matter of energy production at this point. So a couple of A-solars thrown into the mix with the wind turbines is always a nice move, just to make sure that you're going to be fine. But we do also have this geothermal, of course, producing 300 energy per second and making sure that that tan economy stays up and running quite nicely. For now, though, the wind speed is high, and so it won't really matter. Rocket spiders on the field. So this is another one of those things that got changed. Rocket spiders received... Well, so Rocket Spiders received a nerf. Let's start here. The Rocket Spiders received a nerf across the board. I believe they had a sight distance reduction as well as a ranged reduction, so I think they're just a little bit less ranged than they used to be before. However, their counterpart, the Hound, and indeed as part of the reasoning for why their attack range and their sight range was reduced, is to encourage diversity of units on the field here, essentially promoting more Hounds to be played rather than Spiders. Unfortunately, the Hound reduced its effectiveness by reducing its ability to change into Gauss mode. It can no longer perform that, and that's a weird change because suddenly it means the Hound is like half as effective on the front line as it used to be. Now unable even to fight against even relatively fast-moving targets. It's a change that stumps me a little bit. I won't lie. It definitely makes me. It makes me curious why, if spiders were meant to be nerfed here, or at the very least if we were encouraging Hounds to be used, why exactly were spiders... Well, like, why were Hounds nerfed? Does that make sense? Why were Hounds nerfed if we were intending to encourage them to be played? One of those questions I still have, and I'm hoping to get an answer from somebody. But I can't deny that these Rocket Spiders are still looking fabulous on the front line. I sort of predicted that this was exactly what we were going to see. Slightly reduced spider numbers on the front line, but other than that, basically no change. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing here. Gunslingers on the front is interesting as a way to contend with these medium tanks. I love that because, of course, they have their ability to slightly impulse these tanks, stopping them in their tracks, and tanks have a very low acceleration. It means that Gunslingers are actually a wonderful choice, specifically against medium tanks, because they can impulse them, and then the Rocket Spiders can manage to land quite a bit more of their shots in general. It's a really, really nice composition, one that I like to see here a lot from the Blue Commander. Shows a lot of experience with the Armada toolkit. Unfortunately loses one of those here, but you can see, yeah, Rocket Spiders are so wonderful against these medium tanks. They're slow enough as is that the Rocket Spiders can still connect with them. Gunship in the sky, this one's attacking the ground, making sure nobody steps right there. Bombers in the air as well. Trying to bomb down units is always a tricky situation here. T2 units headed out of the lab right now for Wiggle Sticks as we speak, though. Southern side in a lot of trouble. A whole bunch of light laser towers firing away right here with their increased accuracy. All these towers actually firing with increased accuracy. Curious if, well, if the line is going to be broken. We had tons of push right here, but it looks like it's all been, well, pushed back as T2 has hit the field. We've got Scorpion turrets and Persecutors and a whole bunch of those T2 Mauser rolling out as well. Should be more than enough to thwart any T1 forces rolling out of the laboratory. The general idea behind the changes was to reduce the effect of spam. And to that credit, I think it definitely feels like that's a little bit less prevalent. Spamming units just a little bit less powerful as it once was. Anti-air trucks trying their very best here. One of the nice things, one of the very few nice things about going for that mass missile truck composition is you do technically have your anti-air built right into the comp. Gunships, though, the Roughnecks specifically, quite good at hovering well above those T2 and T1 units and dealing quite a bit of damage. As you can see, one by one, picking off the Spiders as well as some of those Gunslingers here. The Gunslinger innate regeneration, not quite enough to deal with those Roughnecks. Fighters coming in, but just a little too slow right here from the Powder Blue Commander. Another big mess. There's the Banisher firing off its new omnidirectional missile. You might have noticed that it no longer has its Pac-Man-shaped area of effect targeting system. It instead has a full-blown 360 degrees of fire, making it a very effective kiting tool. Not that we're seeing that here. But it definitely means that the Banisher can be a much more effective means of kiting backwards against enemy units. You can almost use them exactly like a sharpshooter nowadays. Sharpshooter is very effective at kiting as well because, well, they can walk backwards and fire at the same time, which means that you can essentially, as long as you're paying attention, you can micro them backwards against most compositions and they'll do just fine. Banishers seem to be able to fit into that same exact role, of course, at a tremendous expense. 1,000 metal and 17,000 energy is quite a lot. Here we get to witness the last remains of the T1 static defenses falling before a T2 composition and highlighting exactly why those defenses need to be upgraded to T2 or need to be deconstructed, because otherwise you'll end up feeding your opponent, what would we call this here, about 5,000 metal or so? Yeah, call it approximately 4,500, maybe 5,000 metal. Yeah. Not bad. I'm sure the Maroon Commander is absolutely thrilled about that going into the Advanced Geothermal here. It's highly explosive, but of course high risk and high reward. The reward being 1,250 energy production per second just from this single energy production structure, costing only 1,600 metal as well. Easily the most efficient, most positive trading energy production structure in the game. I would love to see this one upgraded to an HAO, or at the very least maybe a Prude as well. Prudes are just a less explosive version of the T2 metal extractor. They produce a little bit less energy, but they also don't explode basically at all when they die. There's a very, very small explosion. Nice counterattack right here from the Green Commander. Managed to get enough of those Sheldons out, and with the bull support from the Purple Commander, manages to hold on to this front line. We also have the Geothermal to fall back behind. This will definitely help lock down this frontal section. We've got Persecutor Cannons in the queue as well. Ace of Spades not intending to give up any ground, digging in their heels and hoping to hold out for the very, very late game. Interesting skew of positions here. If we zoom out to a higher perspective, you can see that the blue team has a very pointed section of the map, and they kind of fall in this weird line right here. It means that certainly as the red commanders begin to flex northward into these positions, suddenly the blue commander is going to be forced backwards right here, and then that cascades. Suddenly the line starts to look a lot more like this. And then as these forces begin pushing in this way here, the blue team is going to lose more and more force on either of these sides, and it's going to begin to crumble like that. What that means is we need to see these blue cyan forces moving forward a little bit more aggressively, hopefully taking these channels to get to the soft spots here for the red team. I think that moving in that direction is going to help a lot. For the time being, though, these T1 missile trucks are not going to be the unit to do it. We need Jaguars, Bulls, medium tanks. Not bad, actually. Yeah, the Quakers are forced into retreat here as the medium tanks push forward, able to sustain against the initial barrages from those Quakers, and now manage to jump on top of those T2 artillery pieces. Still quite difficult to kill, but not bad. At the very least, scaring them off and buying quite a bit of time here. Ooh, Rinkai accidentally diggins down one of his own units, but it's a sacrifice well worth making to ensure that these guys are, these medium tanks are not going to be able to do all too much more. Just a little bit of friendly fire right there from the Banisher. Accidentally gets it to kill. The Banisher accidentally kills its own teammate. I think that was probably intentional right there from our Cyan hero. Lyoji. Love that here. I'd love to see some Twilights made as well. Those are always very nice to see, those sneaky metal extractors. Ace of Spades. Whoa, gets shot in the back by his own geothermal. That's rough. Yeah, the geothermal is crazy powerful, but that goes both ways. It does a wide area of splash damage, and of course that splash affects anything in the area, friend or foe. Well, you can see when it does connect with those tanks, it hurts, and it hurts a lot. Honestly, yeah, retreating back into the range of this Cerberus and just giving up the ground before that might be the move. Yeah, these units are never going to be comfortable stepping into range right there, so just maintaining a flow of units big enough to, at the very least, keep these nice and safe is going to be really nice. Or maintaining a flow of units to keep the Cerberus firing away at these units, keeping the red units at bay, keeps these metal extractors nice and safe. Another battle on the southern side here. We're upgraded to lightning tanks, which are cool. They do a gigantic burst of damage. Relatively consistently, too. Their fire rate isn't particularly slow. Scorpion turret's going to make light work of these T1 units being thrown away here. Not sure why they're rallied into the T2 static defenses and then rallied backwards. I guess we're just trying to give a little bit of experience to the red commander's static defenses here. Disology celebrating this donation. A little bit of a dance, a little bit of a Cortex dance. Preserved through the centuries. Despite robotization, the Cortex spirit still shines through in their wonderful dance moves. Maybe shining through a little bit more here, though, in their design of weaponry. The demon rolling out of the laboratory. We've already got one headed towards the front line here to accompany an army of fiends. Thematically appropriate, to say the very least. The demon with a twin flame cannon on each arm, adding up to, well, a total of 4, count them, 4 flame cannons. Big old T1 fighter wave, accompanied by a couple of scouts, interestingly enough. Oh! Bombers take out the red commander, blowing up all the accessory items right there and scuffing up those static defenses as well. Bombers following this attack up by going after the T3 lab, blown to smithereens right here. What a turnaround! All of a sudden, the red laboratory is in shambles. Ooh, did we not find the... Okay, there's a lot of T2... Ooh, okay, we don't need this many bombers. Oh, we need half this many bombers. Also, why are we targeting that? We need 7 of these bombers peeled off to kill those advanced... Really? We're not going after the fusions? What are we doing here? We're going after the metal extractors rather than the fusion reactors here. Those APHIS are the obvious target. 9,000 metal apiece. Oh, the bombers, no! Why are we throwing the bombers away like this? Oh, that was just awful. The bombers didn't... Why? Okay, well... Not by any measure of success from the Red Commander's own, but by incompetence in the bombing. Suddenly... Oh, no. Suddenly, 3 APHIS, 3 fusions stay up and running right here. That is a grand total. Hold on, just let me just do some quick math right here. That is 42,000 metal worth of infrastructure stays up and running. I don't even know what to say. That bombing run could have changed the entire way that this southern face looks, but instead, as it looked about 15 seconds ago here. Oh no, I'm still face has met palm. Fiends are gonna burn forward here. They're gonna meet Cookman, and they're gonna cook him alive. My goodness. The path is cleared for the demon to march forward here. There's basically nothing to stop that demon, not really out of a Cortex laboratory anyways. The Mammoth is probably going to be your best bet, but even that really pales in comparison to the firepower that the demon can put out, melting off, I believe it's about 2% per second off of a Mammoth's HP bar. They are nasty. They're really, really nasty when you get them into the fight, and they can be damn near impossible to stop when you don't have the tools in place already to stop them. And obviously most commanders at the T2 era aren't going to have those tools, save for particularly Armada bot commanders with sharpshooters and spy bots, that sort of thing. Another one of those things that got nerfed in the recent patch. I say nerfed, but it was applied across the board, so it's really more of a change. Spy bots now no longer detonate at nearly the power that they once had. Rather than exploding for, I believe it was like 56,000 damage, EMP damage or something like that, it's now down to like 5,000. So they're really, really ineffective against T3 units. Still quite effective against T2, though. They also only stun things for 8 seconds total, meaning, of course, that you can't really paralyze things for multiple minutes on end. You don't really have the luxury of that sort of comfort of time. If you have spy bots, you have to continually keep them detonating against enemy units. Otherwise, they will unfreeze pretty quickly. demon in the backline, and man, I can't get over the fact that those bombers neglected the aphises there. I know Dizology was looking at that, getting ready, just hovering over that resign button, ready to hit it as quick as possible, but watched as those bombers flew away, you know, aimlessly into the night, and said, oh, well, okay, I guess I can go win then. And here we are. Demons and Fiends tearing apart the backline. Now the purple base is in trouble. The Seafoam green commander losing it as well here. Kyrenex. Follow-up bombing run. Okay. I mean, anti-air is in place. That's sort of the issue with going for that bombing run, is the first bombing run has the least resistance. All follow-up bombing runs should, in theory anyways, have the most resistance. No fighters to escort these either. Means the T2 Figs are going to be able to shut these down pretty effectively here. I don't mind bombing these Starlights, by the way. This is actually a really nice move. Starlights are infamously difficult to deal with. Taking them out with bombers with air power is far and away one of the best options there is. Well, that Grim Commander got sniped. He tried to cloak and walk his way away. Did not work out here. The demon that could. Look at him go. Burning down the backline. Wind turbines, metal extractors, bases, commanders, you name it, you name some more. The demon's gonna have absolutely no problem with it. No cloak. Boom goes the commander, easily right there. With no cloak, the commander didn't stand a chance as the demon finds the fusion reactors here of the powder blue commander. Going to be quite easily burning those down as well, liquefying the corpse of that fusion so that it can shoot past it. And as opposed to moving slightly to the left, it's not the way that the demon works. It's not the way that the demon thinks. It says instead, I think I'd rather just turn that to molten slag as I detonate your base. Aphis goes up in smoke, taking with it loads of constructors, airplanes, and all manner of other craft here that were available for the powder blue commander, Malaga. I love trying. I love trying my very best, even if it's always wrong. And now this demon is continuing onwards. With a combined kill count of 168 and rising, this demon has easily thrown the balance of this game out of whack here for the red and blue teams. There was a nice push on this northern side. Looks like loads of vehicles went down here. I was completely distracted, though, by the bombing runs and, of course, by that demon terrorizing the backline. Oh, he's at it again. More wind turbines, more solar panels, more mexes, more constructors, more of all of the rest popping right now. It's only a matter of time before this demon hits the blue base, and I think that will ultimately be the morale hit that the blue team requires in order to abandon all hope in this game. My goodness. Demons are nasty, aren't they? It was only a matter of seconds before that T2 laboratory was blown apart. You really have basically no reaction time to deal with the demon. They burn things down so incredibly quickly. GG's, I'm fighting 3, says Leoji. Actually was fighting 3. At least 3. The pink commander, tank commander flex downwards as well, and then the maroon commander heading upwards. And it's exactly as I said. With the pressure being released here, suddenly this line has moved to something like this. And of course, with this base being knocked out, there's basically a gigantic weak point in the fact that the southern side is wide open here. A little bit surprised to not see a constructor moving forward to grab these metal extractors, but it's not the end of the world. Of course, you can always just scale in the backline, which appears to be what the red commander is going for. The resign vote is called from the blue commander as predicted, and just like that, the towel is thrown. The blue team meets the pavement as the red team manages to claim their victory here in a hard-fought game back and forth between these two teams on Bismuth Valley. I love watching this kind of game because you really do get to see the individual effects of these commanders, and you start to predict the future, the golden path, the Lisan al-Gaib, the voice from the stars. Thank you so much for watching. I sure hope you enjoyed today's cast, and if you did, feel free to leave a like down below. It really helps these casts propagate the internet. Propagate the internet? That's the word that I'm looking for. And it helps Bar get out there, and I'm really excited to see how the Bar community has been growing in general. I heard from some of the devs some exciting news that I'll share in some upcoming videos. But that's all for now. I sure hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the very next one, Commanders. Peace out, and so long.